Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, the current section focuses on the beginnings of perspective grammar. I hope and expect that by the end of this session, you would be able to understand how there was a beginning of perspective grammar in the English language history. Well, my dear students, through the 18th century, what we notice is to prescribe and to proscribe was the aim of the grammarians. When I say to prescribe, it means to suggest. They would tell this is what is to be done. And when I say to proscribe, it means to ban something, to stop from doing something. So they would not only tell what to do, they would also tell what not to do in terms of language choices. Well, my dear students, the prescriptive distinction between the two verbs, for instance, lie and lay, if you look at the screen, I have encircled the words for you. That was for the first time made in the second half of the 18th century. Before that, intransitive lay was not considered a syllogism. The other expressions, for instance, this expression had rather or had better, these were condemned by Johnson, Lowth, and Campbell. So, all these grammarians, they would point out this is right and this is wrong. They would, suggest this one should be used, this one should not be used. And very interestingly, this prescriptive grammar would opt for one choice. If there would be two different usage of the same item of grammar, they would say this one is right and this can be used, which automatically, would bring in an assumption that the other one is not to be used. This was the time actually when there were a lot of other matters of grammar, those that were a source of dispute through the times, they were resolved, or at least an effort was made to resolve all of these. The grammarians tried to give their verdict on them. For example, notice this, the proper case after than or after as. This was a question of trouble. This brought some trouble to the grammarians to decide. Notice these two examples. He is taller than I, or he is taller than me. So, which one should be accepted, which one is correct, was an issue. Well, Lowth gave his view on that, and that is acceptable till today. The pronoun is determined by the construction to be supplied or understood, as given. So, he is older than she. This is how it is determined. He likes you better than me. Well, another puzzling question that the grammarians tried to solve was, it concerned the case before the gerund. I don't like him doing that, this one, or I don't like his doing that. These two options. His here was opposed by Harris, Lowth, and others, but Webster held that this was the genuine English idiom and the only permissible form. So, the grammarians would try to give their own rationale and their own logic, and they would, have debates over that. And a lot of times, there would be two different groups of grammarians with two opposing views. And each group would prescribe, would suggest something different from the other. Anyways, this was Webster, whose opinion, came to be held popular and it was accepted. Finally, we may also notice that the 18th century is responsible for the condemnation of the double negatives. Lowth stated the rule that we are now bound to. We also, in the modern times, we do not use double negatives. And the rule comes from him. He said, two negatives in English destroy one another or are equivalent to an affirmative. Thus, a useful idiom, that was in Shakespearean times very much popular, the use of double negatives, it came to an end.